welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you don't know, my name is Sephora. I'm a licensed attorney and law school coach, and I am so excited about this video, okay? Because a lot of people have been asking about it. A lot of people have been saying, what can you do? And there's a lot of misconceptions around what you can actually do with the legal degree, or what actually big law actually is, or whatever, right? So I'm just gonna do this video and tell you, what can you do with the legal degree? So we're gonna kick it off with none other than, you guessed it, big law. Yes, so a lot of people confuse, or conflate is the better word, big law and corporate. So, and like, by all means, like, that's not your fault at all, right? It's not like you actually went to law school yet. So let me explain the difference. Or let me explain why you shouldn't conflate the two. And sometimes when I ask my clients, what are you hoping to do post-law school? They'll say corporate. And I'll say, okay, I mean more generally, like big law, small law, whatever. And what I come to realize is they're conflating corporate with big law. Understand that big law is a kind of firm, right? It's almost like an entity or a name that you can give to a kind of firm. It's not a type of law specifically that you practice, right? So corporate is a type of law that you can practice. I mean, there's subdivisions under corporate, but corporate is a type of law that you can practice at the most basic level. Big law is not like you're not saying I practice big law, right? So if you do, for example, corporate work, you may say, I do mergers and acquisitions, right? Or you may say, I do banking, or you may say, I do tax. And those things, to an extent, can all somewhat be grouped under corporate, right? Plus like a million more. But it's not, I practice big law. It's, I do this, I do that, right? And so when people say corporate and conflate big law, just know that there is that difference, right? So big law. If you are hoping to go into big law, and big law is one of the things that you can do post-law school, then there are different umbrellas of law you can practice once at a big law firm. And for the purposes of this video, I am categorizing big law as the law firms that have over 150 attorneys and pay market rate. So as of the recording of this video, September 2024, market rate is $225,000 starting salary. What that means is when you graduate law school and enter into a big law firm, you are making $225,000 starting salary. And your firm has over 150 attorneys. So for the purposes of this video, that is how I'm categorizing big law. That is also, I believe, how majority of people will categorize big law, because big law firms pay market rate. So anyway, right? So once you are at a big law firm, there's those different umbrellas of law that you can practice. And you have corporate is one. So, and I just gave you some examples there: mergers and acquisitions, banking, real estate. Banking can sometimes also, I don't want to get too into the nitty gritty for this video, you guys, but so we're just going to keep it at the basic level. So corporate, banking, real estate, mergers and acquisitions, tax, what else? There's like a ton of different things that can go under that corporate umbrella, right? So corporate is one. Big law firms, you can also practice litigation. And this is why you don't necessarily want to conflate big law with corporate, because by saying corporate when you really mean you want to practice at a big law firm, then you're kind of insinuating that a big law firm does not do litigation. And most big law firms do both corporate and litigation, okay? So another umbrella under big law firm is litigation. As a litigation attorney, you can do commercial litigation, you can do civil litigation, you can do government investigations, you can do personal injury, right? There's so many, and that's a little limited. Not all big law firms will allow you to do that, but you can also do it on the pro bono side. Same thing with criminal work. You can, if you're thinking like criminal, you can do that on the pro bono side. You can still do that at a big law firm. There's so many little nuances here, but I'm trying to get you to understand, like, that basically you have big law, and then you have these actual practice areas within your big law firm that you can do, right? So corporate, litigation, big law firms usually do both. Again, then you also may have regulatory. Now, some law firms will categorize regulatory under litigation or as a subdivision of litigation or within the same camp. That just depends on the law firm that you're at. But regulatory work isn't necessarily corporate, and it's also not necessarily litigation, right? Regulatory work will usually involve more advisement. So you're doing a lot more advising. And so if you're thinking you're on the regulatory real estate, right? Then maybe you're advising developers, or maybe tax is a better example, because maybe you're advising your client on tax codes, on tax laws, and making sure that they're staying within the tax code and the tax laws. Or if they want to make a move or do something, then they're going to come to you and ask, can I do this, right? Is it legal, right? And it's your job to figure that out and maybe give them different scenarios of what they can do, of what their liability would be here and would be there, right? So when you're practicing tax, it's not like you're filing tax returns, right? That's not what you're doing. And especially not for individuals, right? So because at this big law level, you're doing it for companies, you're doing it, or very, 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 very high net worth individuals, because it ain't cheap, okay? Hiring a big law firm ain't cheap, right? And so regulatory work is more of that advisement. But can it also involve litigation? Yes. Can it also involve corporate or contracting work? Yes, right? So again, there's a lot more nuances here, but just understanding it at the most basic level is that's so you can understand like what you're looking for when you're getting ready or thinking about applying to law school and what you would potentially want to do, right? Okay, so now we've covered big law, and that's literally nowhere near all of the different things you can do, but you have that basic understanding. Okay, so the next thing that you can go into, or the next legal career you can choose, is, what, drum roll please, is academia, right? And so academia, these are your professors. These are your law school professors. These are the people who are standing up in front of the class and they are teaching you. So I think that one is pretty straightforward. And I don't think I need to go and like talk about specifically like what you want to do to land these things. So I have plenty of videos on that, but I'll just do it brief because, right, I want to make this video wholesome, just like you want your application to be. If you're aiming for big law, you're going to want to aim for law schools that place at least over 50% of their graduating class into big law firms. That's going to make it the easiest for you to land a big law job. There's about 15 law schools that do that, and there's some law schools outside of that can still give you a good chance. There's other ways there's other things you want to think about, such as geography, class placement. Yeah, mainly geography and class placement. And so those are things you're going to look at for big law. Academia is even higher. You're definitely going to want to really aim for your T14, T10 law schools if you're really interested in academia, because those are your law school professors. The other thing that you're also going to want to aim for is my third career path here, which is federal clerkships. Now, federal clerkships are usually 1 or 2 year gigs max. However, some judges do have career law clerks, which basically means it is your career. You have made a career out of being a federal law clerk. So as a federal law clerk, you're doing lots of research and lots of writing and advising and talking to and making suggestions to your judge. Exactly what you do as a federal law clerk. You're just doing it as a career instead of for 1 or 2 years. Similarly, for federal clerkships, those are going to be your tippy top law schools. You're going to want to definitely aim for law schools in the T14 range, T20 range, and really do well while you're in law school. So far, we have covered big law, we have covered academia, and we have covered federal clerkships. Now we're going to cover, of course, politics. Now, I don't think I have to go too much into detail here. A lot of your politicians, a lot of your senators, a lot of your congressmen, people who are running for office, have graduated from law school. Not all of them, of course, because it's not like it's a requirement, but that is a common path. I definitely know a lot of people who I went to law school with who have started or who are interested in a career in politics. So it's definitely one of those hit the ground running degrees that you can get if you're interested in going into politics. And then, of course, as well there, if that is something you're thinking about, being in DC, you're trying to go to law school in DC is going to be a benefit to you, because this is where the magic happens, in DC, okay? So the next thing that we have, the next legal career we have, is in-house, right? So in-house is probably one of the most confusing ones that people think about, right? Because some of my clients will say, I would love to I would love to go in-house and do fashion law, or I would love to go in-house and do entertainment law. And it's, you know, and because some of my clients, like a lot of them are like dancers or in like the arts, and what I'm explaining to them is, I mean, you can definitely go in-house, and you can go in-house for an entertainment company. You can go in-house for, if some of my clients are interested in sports, you can go in-house for a sports company, football, soccer, whatever it may be. But it's not inherently like you're practicing entertainment law or you're practicing sports law, right? It's what you're actually doing is one of those subdivisions of corporate or transactional advisory work, so regulatory work or litigation, right? And so what you're actually doing is maybe you're looking at two so I'll give you a concrete example. I think it's T-Mobile and whatever one of those other phone companies were. Let's say you're in-house for T-Mobile. You're not practicing phone law necessarily or something along those lines. You're probably, depending on your position at the in-house company, you're probably looking at the contract to decide, can T-Mobile legally, under the, what is it, FTC maybe? Can T-Mobile merge with, what's the company? Sprint. Can T-Mobile merge with Sprint? Or is it gonna be a violation of antitrust laws, right? And so you would be practicing antitrust law, right? Not necessarily like phone law or like technology law. Because if you're there and you're acting as a mergers and acquisitions attorney, or that's something that you're working on in that given moment, you're deciding, can these two companies merge legally? So you're looking at a lot of contracts and deciding, you're looking maybe at the market share of the two companies, and all of that is antitrust law. So if you don't like antitrust law, you're not gonna wanna go in-house for a company where the majority of what you're gonna be doing is antitrust, is mergers and acquisitions, right? And so you want to think about, okay, if I were to go in-house, for example, for this sports company, for this dance company, what am I actually going to be doing? And do I like that subdivision of law? If you don't like contracts, if you don't like mergers and acquisitions, if you don't like all that kind of stuff, then you probably won't necessarily like going in-house unless you're in the litigation department of that in-house company, right? And so then what you're doing is, yes, you may still be practicing antitrust law, but maybe you're not primarily dealing with the contract or the merger and the acquisition. Maybe that already happened, and what you're actually doing is you're focusing on defending it in court, right? And so it's really, you need to understand the underlying piece of what you're going to be doing in that position and decide, do I like litigation? Do I like mergers and acquisitions? Whatever it is you're going to be doing, do you like that kind of work? And then deciding, okay, then yes, I want to do this. Because for example, for me, if I was going to, I love fashion. I have fashion videos on here, right? And let's say like I want to go in-house for Prada. But Prada is almost never in court, and they don't have a litigation department because they outsource, which a lot of in-house companies do. They outsource anytime they need to go to court or anytime they need litigation, they will outsource and hire an outside firm. And so they don't have an in-house litigation department. They only have an in-house like advisory department or an in-house corporate or transactional department. I wouldn't want to do that, even though I like fashion, because I don't like corporate work. I don't like contractual work. I don't like advisory work, right? And so really understanding what you're actually going to be doing if in-house is your goal, okay? I hope that made sense. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I tried to break it down for you. Okay, so next we have government. You can go into government. There's so many different government things you can do. You can be a prosecutor. You can be a public defender. You can go DOJ, which is Department of Justice. You can go FEC, you can go SEC, so that's F as in Frank and S as in Sam, and so many different things. And again, there, depending on what you do, you're going to be looking at and doing different kinds of work. So of course you can be a litigator going into the government. Of course you can also do corporate work going into the government. And just again, is going to depend on the sector, the group, the area that you enter. So I did an externship with the Department of Justice, and it was in a division that I didn't like the law. So I enjoy litigation, but and it was torts. I didn't like torts law. So I wouldn't do that, right? And so it's really getting an understanding of what kind of law you actually like to practice, and that will take time. That will happen like once you actually when you get there, right? So I'm just helping you like think about the different things you can go to. Next, we have public interest, and a lot of people will conflate government and public interest. I keep them separate because I do believe they are separate. So whereas government is like you are working for the government, so again, Department of Justice, a public defender's office, prosecutor, whatever, AUSA. Public interest is usually you're working for a entity that is separate from the government. So think NAACP, ACLU, Washington Post, right? Think along those lines. So that is also an option, which is going public interest. And again, you can practice different things there. You can do corporate, transactional. If they do litigation, if they have that department, then you can do that there, right? So these are the broad, and this is usually when I'm asking my clients, what are you interested in going into? I'm usually talking about the broad spectrum. Big law or any firm, government, public interest. I'm not specifically looking for the kind of law, and that's because usually before you start law school, you don't know. You don't know. You may think you know, but you don't know, right? And so for me, what I knew the broad area of litigation. I knew I wanted to be a litigator. The specific area, not so much, right? At least not when I was just applying to law school. So those are just a few things that you can do with your legal degree. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Comment down below and let me know which broad area you think you are interested in. Are you interested in big law? Interested in academia? I didn't mention this one, but I should have, so I'll add it at the end. So big law, academia, federal clerk, and here you can tell me if you want to be just a term clerk, 1 or 2 years, or if you'd like to be a career clerk, which you actually won't know because that's not something you'll know until after you do a term. So just tell me if you want to be a term clerk. What else did I mention? Politics, in-house, government, public interest, and the one I did not mention was a judge, if you would like to be a judge. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Topping the Curve. If you're interested in coaching, you can always access that by going to toppingthecurve.com. We have a masterclass coming up where I'm going to be teaching you guys the step-by-step process for fall 2025 and 2026 to get into top law schools. So that masterclass is Monday, September 30th and Tuesday, October 1st. You can get all the details by going to toppingthecurve.com/masterclass. If you missed it, go ahead and shoot us an email and just say masterclass replay, and we will allow you to get that replay. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, depending on when you're watching this video, and I will see you guys on my next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.